Welcome. It's Thursday, the 23rd of July, and this is a TILT webinar. That's Technology and Language Teaching webinar with Stephan Caspar. This is America, teaching in light of COVID-19 and Black Lives Matter. I'm Helen Myers. I'm chair of the London branch of the Association for Language Learning. I'll talk about that in just a minute. We always thank Heike Philp and Linguascope, who gave us a lot of help when we were setting these webinars up. But the person who's been the most important at bringing everybody together, he knows everybody in the IT world and everybody knows him, is Joe Dale. Joe, would you like to introduce yourself and say what you've got?
I would love to, Helen. Thank you so much. So it's just, again, lovely to see so many people coming along to tonight's Tilt webinar, which is very on message. It's going to be very interesting to hear Stephan talking about his situation in Pittsburgh in relation to teaching remotely or emergency teaching remotely, as well as living under the friction of the current political system and the Black Lives Matter movement. So I'm really looking forward to hearing all about that from someone who's there living it on a day-to-day basis. It's going to be fantastic. But as part of my day job, I am an independent languages consultant. I do earn a living, or try to earn a living, through doing paid webinars, and in the chat I have put a selection of 18 example sessions of things that, if you wanted to get some support from me to help you prepare for August or September, depending on when you're starting your new academic year, then I'm more than happy to hear from you about that and work out either one webinar or a series of webinars, whatever you would like, based on the example sessions I've given or something I bespoke for you. But also, I'd like to mention about the fact that we've got some exciting webinars coming up. I know that Helen's going to be mentioning the ones that we've got in the next couple of days, but I wanted to announce that today, reveal for the first time that we have a webinar from Heidi Trude, who is going to be speaking to us in April, but now has been able to reconvene for July and is able to speak to us about Google Tools and Flipgrid. So I'm going to put that in the chat. So it's going to be similar content to Chris Hart, what he presented for us a couple of months ago. But Heidi is a very well-known, respected language teacher in the States. And so we're hoping that we're going to get a lot of US people coming through and watching live. And I'd also like to mention, as part of a new series of webinars that I'm doing, a new one that we announced literally about an hour ago is with Martin Lapworth, and he's going to be talking about Text-Ovate and TeachVid, and already between 65 and 70 sign-ups have happened. So in the last, just shows how popular Martin is, 60 to 70 sign-ups already in the last hour. So hopefully we're going to get hundreds and hundreds of people coming along to that, and that's on the 27th of July at 2000 hours BST. So we look forward to seeing you there as well. Over to you, Helen.
Okay, thank you. I'm just going to do a quick plug for ALL, the Association for Language Learning. If you're a member, it would be great for you to just tell us in the chat that you're a member and encourage people to join. So this is the main teacher organisation representing teachers, helping people to articulate their views. And you'll get magazines and really being part of community. And if you join today with the code webinar10, you would get 10% off. Actually, it goes until the 30th of September, but it sounds better to join today, but it'd be great to have you with us. All of the webinars that we've had so far are stored on as a link in the webinar page of ALL London branch. The recordings are on Joe Dale's YouTube. But if you go on the webinar, you'll have all of the chat and the pictures that I'll take of everybody. Joe has already talked about what's coming up. We've got Melissa Goldrakeley on this Saturday, 10 o'clock. Sophia Mavridi on July the 28th. And as you say, Heidi Trude is on the 30th of July. I've already mentioned this, but remember, a reminder of, while I'm recording it, of our etiquette, that we're professional and kind. And ALL is very happy to host speakers and participants free of charge. Speakers and participants are responsible for what they say. So now, I think, Joe, you've already given us a bit of an introduction to Stephan, but if you'd like to say a few more before Stephan starts. So there, yes. We've got who Stephan is, and then that's what this session is about.
Fantastic. Oh, I think on the next page, you've got Carmen Scoggins' description.
Oh, I always do something just
Don't worry. It's all good. While we're sorting that out, I will talk about how I met Stephan. So Stephan and myself met through a love of podcast, essentially. So Sophie Bailey, who does the EdTech podcast, she interviewed me, and it so happened that we worked out that when I went to the Isle of Wight to work in the the school where I worked for 10 years, I actually replaced the teacher who taught Sophie when she was in year 8. So she went from year 8 into year 9 up to the local high school, and I replaced her teacher. So that was all a bit serendipitous. I knew she was from the Isle of Wight, but I didn't know the connections were that close. And then Stephan apparently listened to that particular episode while driving his car, I believe. I'm sure Stephan can clarify that in a moment. Stephan then invited me to Southampton University for a mini conference on podcasting education, and we sort of connected from there and shared podcasting tips as well as other interesting things around the use of educational technology and augmented reality and other such things. But Stephan's a lovely, lovely person, and I'm really looking forward to hearing his personal view on the situation at the moment in America and how he's coped with the remote teaching, emergency remote teaching experience at the university level, because we haven't had someone from university before in these TELT webinars. It's normally people who are secondary teachers. So it's going to be really amazing, I think, to hear from Stephan. So thank you ever so much for agreeing to do this, Stephan. And if you're happy to share your screen now, we're then good to go. I think I'm right in saying, Helen, is that right? Is everything? Yep.
Yeah,
okay.
fine.
So if you could share your screen, Stephan, and thank you for agreeing to do this. It's great. Thank you.
And if you just say, normally we ask people to mute themselves. You can keep your video on, that doesn't matter, but then the audio is the important thing. Thank you.
Thank you.
That's great. Thank you, Joe, and thank you, Helen, for inviting me. It's it's a really lovely thing to be able to talk about these sorts of things. It's good therapy, I have to say, and even putting my slides together, it just helps you kind of reflect and just take a moment and take a little bit of a pause out of all the kind of chaos that has been over the last 3-4 months. I don't know. We've got a thing on our fridge where I've been writing the day since we left. I think when schools closed down. I think we're on day 130 today. So that's where we are. Can you all see just a sort of intro card there? Yeah, yes. So you can see that.
Absolutely fine. Yeah.
I'm gonna. Brilliant. Thank you. I'm going to try and get through the first few slides and kind of quickly, and I want us to have some time to have a chat. And I appreciate that it's 3 o'clock in the afternoon for me. Look, the sun's still up, just about. Although, oh no, it's raining. This is Pittsburgh, where you're in your shorts and t-shirts, and but you need an umbrella as well. And yeah, but I appreciate that it's an evening for you guys, and probably after a long old day as well. So let's go through this. I've got some slides for you, and I suppose this is a very personal kind of presentation. It's not the sort of thing that I would normally do, standing in front of lots of people. Usually, I'd have a paper to defend or be sharing best practice. Well, I suppose I am in a way, but this is more from the heart, as it were. So let's get us going. So yeah, I'm Stephan, and my route into education has been a little bit unusual. I trained as a filmmaker originally. I was going to be the next Steven Spielberg, and then I worked for the BBC. I worked on lots of feature films, and I had a really good time kind of doing those. And bit by bit, I kind of drifted into doing more training and online video. And eventually I arrived at the BBC to work in their informal learning unit at Marylebone High Street, which was part of BBC People. And I had a really great time there creating content for all manner of people, including the School of Journalism and various groups within the organisation. I think it was just about the time when everybody moved to Manchester, and we'd had the Blue Peter scandal and all of those things. If you're UK based, you know what I'm talking about there. And we had a choice really to head up to Manchester or to stay and do something else. And I decided to stay. And I was living on the south coast. I was living in Fareham. And the local college needed somebody to teach media 1 day a week, and so I thought I'll do that as well. And so I was heading up to London on the train every day, and then I think on like Thursday afternoon, it was quite nice. I'd stay at home and I'd go and teach media studies. I think I taught darkroom photography, something. I knew how to do that anyway. And that one afternoon became 2 afternoons, and then 3 days, and then 4 days, and then they made me head of department. So I thought, oh God, I'm in this now. I better stick to it. And you know, and I did my teacher training whilst I was there, and the more and more I got into it, the more and more I kind of loved it. But I've still always had this connection with making things and making media. And then the job at the University of Southampton came up to look after their, I think they just bought into MOOCs. So they just were one of the founding partners in FutureLearn. And so they needed somebody to help make courses for them. So this seemed perfect, and it was my way into university. And I spent, what, 5 or 6 years at Southampton, someone will correct me. And then I sort of, when I left there, I was a digital learning lead, looking after a small team of learning designers and instructional designers and media makers, and a really talented and lovely team. And we very proud of the courses that we created and the support that we gave to educators and researchers throughout the organisation. So that was great. But this, you know, I've always had the stuff of teaching, and I think it was one of the last staff, Kate Borthwick at Southampton. I think she probably wanted to get rid of me, so she saw an advert in the newspaper, and she said, "You'd be perfect for this." And I don't think there was much. But it was essentially to teach and to run a room and to lead a new space in media design and interactive design at Carnegie Mellon University. And I managed to do that. I'm here now, and we sort of took the leap, and I've been here for the last couple of years with my little family, who are sort of next door and quite noisy. But yeah, we're here, and this is Pittsburgh, and this is where we are. This is the view from Mount Washington over the Monongahela River. It has 3 rivers, Pittsburgh. It's at the intersection of 3 rivers, the Allegheny, the Monongahela, and the Ohio. So there you go. I'm starting to know about where I live. And you know, it's a really fascinating place to be as well. So like I say, it has its own dialect, how Yin's doing, you know, and Yinzers are Pittsburghers. And it was a steel city. You know, everybody knows it's very famous for, you know, it's the steel that created the Empire State Building and the railroads, and oh my gosh. And you know, the topography means that you know, you didn't have to do sort of open cast. You could pretty much cut into a hillside, and the coal would come flooding out onto the barges, and things could be processed there, and iron ore could be processed, and steel could be made. And that really was what you know, supported by the industrialists, by Andrew Carnegie and Andrew Mellon, the 2 big Andrews of Pittsburgh, you know, and it really became a huge kind of industrial centre. And of course that, you know, that waned, and that's gone. I should mention that that's my favourite bridge, just on the left there. That's the hot metal bridge, where they transported the steel from one side, basically from the furnace on one side of the river into the factory onto the other side of the river. And Pittsburgh has around 400 bridges. So, you know, you're always crossing one or heading through another, and it's got lots of tunnels as well. So it's a pretty up and down place. I brought my bike with me, and honestly, it's been a nightmare. Just there's no flat bits of Pittsburgh. Everybody's either living on a hillside, or you're either walking up a hill or walking down a hill. That's how it is. So now, yes, Pittsburgh has reinvented himself, and it's really what we call it term as eds and meds. So you know, it has I think 7 universities in Pittsburgh. You know, University of Pittsburgh being the sort of probably the biggest one, but then Carnegie Mellon University, where I am, which was Carnegie Tech. But also then there's Duquesne University. There's there's Slippery Rock just up the road. There's I mean, gosh, there's lots. The names of them I forget right this second, but it is there. And then meds. So Pittsburgh is a huge medical center, and the University of Pittsburgh Medical Center is a real kind of pioneering place. And they're working busily on a vaccine for the pandemic, as you can imagine. But they're places that that pioneered the heart surgeries and transplants. It has a and people, you often see people at the airport, coming in because they're using the medical centres, and they're coming from all around America to use these services. So that's kind of where it is at the moment. It's a very multicultural city. I think when the steel was there, people came from all over, from Eastern Europe. People came up from the south. People came from Canada. People came from far and wide, really. So it's a very multicultural place. There's one of the biggest Jewish populations in the US. Unfortunately, that was the reason that a couple of years ago, the community was targeted in the Tree of Life shooting, which only happened basically a block behind where I work, in a community called Squirrel Hill. And so Pittsburgh's been recovering from that over the past few years as well. And due to that, in part, it's got it's a very progressive city. So we have a very progressive mayor. We have one of the strictest gun controls in America. The first place to get rid of machine guns and all these other, frankly, unnecessary things. And when Donald Trump, he closed. He refused to re-sign the Paris Accord for climate change, and he said because he represented the people of Pittsburgh, not Paris. In fact, the people of Pittsburgh, the mayor of Pittsburgh, turned around and said, "Actually, you don't speak for us," and that they were working very hard for it to become a very green city, and trying to really turn its back on its big industrial past to a brighter future. Because when coal and steel went, a lot of people left Pittsburgh. One of the strange things that happened was that housing got cheap, and new and different trades came in. I've spoken about eds and meds already, but one of the biggest things has been technology. Technology has really come in to kind of plug the gap, and it's a real alternative to Silicon Valley, and everybody's here. A lot in part for the students at Carnegie Mellon. They're bright kids, and they all want to go and work for Google and Uber. Duolingo are here, based in Pittsburgh. They're an invention from somebody's project from Carnegie Mellon University, and that becomes a big focus for us in languages here in Pittsburgh. So they're all here. And it's great. I'm working quite closely in terms of augmented reality and virtual reality, and Oculus Labs is just a couple of minutes down the road. It's brilliant to be able to go and visit them and talk to them. Uber are here making driverless cars, and every now and then you see the Argon cars driving around the streets with people on laptops and nobody driving. It's very disconcerting, but they're getting there. So yeah, it's say this is the contrast really between the old and the new, and this is where I work. I work in a room called the Global Languages and Cultures room, and it's a room within a new building in something called the Tepper Quad, and it's a room for where we do language learning. So there's second language acquisition, but also there's language and culture here. And the focus really is on making, and sometimes making media, but we're also exploring the way immersive technologies can be leveraged, really. So that room over there on the sort of far left, that's an immersive space that I have, where we can create immersive experiences. I've got experiences where you can go in, you can start conversations in different languages, and you can use the immersive tech that's around you to facilitate that. And that's the same throughout the room with headsets and things like what have you. Here's my class, actually. You can see it's a kind of hands-on class. We're all making things and drawing things. This is kind of exemplifies my philosophy of teaching. And look, there are a couple of headsets at the front. And these are the courses that I teach. So you can see they're all mostly around language and culture. I'm really interested in exploring the student's own contexts. and drawing on those for them to create media, for them to create immersive experiences. I'm very interested in ideas around digital storytelling. I suppose when I explain my job to people who aren't in languages, I explain that quite often students used to go abroad and they used to do a sort of a project, you know, like on a local museum or something. And nowadays, you know, and that would be, you know, like a diary or a big written or a journal, and now what I'm trying to do is get them to make films, to create immersive experiences, to work with maps and create apps. You know, the response to your overseas trips or to your language learning can be hugely kind of media based, as it were. So I'd say these are the courses that I'm running, and that's where we were. That's where we, you know, this is probably taken just a couple of weeks before life kind of changed for us. You know, life changed completely. Yeah, this is how it felt like.
Stephan, could I just ask a general question? Is that okay? Just in relation to the headsets that we saw in that picture previously, I appreciate that was pre-lockdown, but are you using the headsets at the moment, or is that a COVID issue around like cleaning them, or is it not safe to share headsets? I would imagine you're not allowed to do that. I just wondered what you thought.
Yeah, no, that's gone, and I've done a few things. So I've managed to buy some headsets for some students. I've managed to, these cardboard headsets that I have in places. I've got a load of these made, and these are little Google Cardboard sets. And these are really easy to pop in the post and send to a student, and then they can assemble it, and they pop their phone in that bit, and then there you go. They can use that. So that has been great. That costs about $3, you know. But I did some in my last course. I only had 5 students, and I thought maybe I can get them all headsets. So I did. I managed to sort of take a bag to them and do a kind of contactless exchange of headsets. But yeah, I mean, it's a big question, you know, in this sort of new normal, and in the sort of second part of my talk, will we really be able to kind of get back to where we were? I have no idea. So yeah. So yes, the toilet roll. Maybe this was a dream that I had. I think this is where it was. You know, I think that's probably what inspired that. There you go. Yeah, and I was due that week. I was due when everything kind of locked out. I was due to go to Berlin as well. I was going to spend 10 days with students, filming projects. We had a load of interviews. We were making films about 0 Hour and Berlin at the end of the Second World War, and we were all ready to go. My mum and dad arrived out of the blue as well, so they were with us, not to come to see me, but come to see their grandchildren, of course. And so yeah, it was kind of chaos, you know. So yeah, and we got the email just like everybody did, you know, and I think because we knew that students were going away, that a lot of them were going home. Spring break is a big kind of partying season for students in America, so we really needed to shut up shop and to teach remotely and change things. So I remember trying to collect my thoughts, and I wrote an article and that I published on Medium, and you're very welcome to have a look at it. But the only caveat I'd say is that that was kind of my using my knowledge from as a digital learning lead, as a learning technologist. I was just sort of doing that really. And now I reread it recently, and there's lots of things I would sort of, they don't reflect the reality of what we ended up actually having, actually experiencing. And I think that, you know, there's a little sort of dissonance between the two. I'm saying, you know, do this and do that, but the reality was you know, much different really. I don't know. I'll stand by some of it, but yeah, I don't know. There we go. But then once you've written something, it's up there, isn't it? And it's for everybody to see. So yeah, these were my things really. Don't panic, do panic. You know, I thought basically my main job was to reassure the students who suddenly found themselves, some at home, some still in halls. A lot of international students really still in halls. And yeah, some yeah, on people's sofas and stuck in the middle of nowhere. Some had gone back to, you know, our students, and I've been teaching students at the moment. Some are in California, some are in Qatar, some are in Beijing, some are in New Jersey, New York, some are in, I've got one in Kentucky. I mean, they are just everywhere, really. So I needed to kind of think about that. I stripped the course. I mean, I really went through and just gutted everything that I thought was superfluous to the sort of learning outcomes, really. Everything that was nice to have, I just got rid of. And what I came away with was like a much better course for starters, but something that was much more on point and much more achievable, I think. Although I'll be honest with you, every week I was readjusting and readjusting. I surveyed the students a couple of times. I think the hardest thing is just to be able through this medium of Zoom and through the sort of distance tools to just keep a measure of how they're coping and how they're doing it. So yeah, so don't panic, but I had loads of stuff to do. Try and get some emails out, reassure the students, and I tried to do that early as possible. I stripped the course, thought about ways to kind of make it fun, and leaned on some of my friends who are part of the brilliant Playful Learning Conference, which is part of ALT, for some really fun ideas of things to do, and we did. You know, I'll tell you about some of those later. And then, yeah, I needed a space to work. So this is a kind of sunroomy bit that's sort of attached, and I sort of cleared this out and stuck a desk here. And this has been where the magic happens for the last 4 months. And yeah, I've been stuck to this desk. The best thing I've managed to salvage, you know, in the days was I managed to steal my office chair and bring it back. Otherwise, I'd be on a sort of a kind of wooden chair. So.
We've got a question in the chat, Stephan, if that's okay. So
yeah,
Fatima in the chat, who does a lot of digital storytelling in her language lessons, and she's worked with Goldsmiths University as well, with Jim Anderson, Dr. Jim Anderson there, I know. So she's a big fan of what you're talking about. She was wondering, well, she's asked the question, how can I learn from your teaching of the digital storytelling? Do you have a place where we can learn from your experience? Would it be like Medium posts, or would it be somewhere more central?
Yeah, I will. I'll put a link to my website at the end. I publish all my syllabus as open online learning, so you can access all my materials, and you can steal, you can rewrite them, you can do whatever you like with them. This is hard. The Canvas site is locked up here, but I have published in Canvas Commons as well. But I always try and do it. If anybody can find anything useful out of it, then they're very welcome to it. Or if they want to build on something, or just scan it for references, then more than happy. So yeah, those links are at the end of the slides, and I'll give you these slides as well, Joe. And you're welcome to share.
That's fantastic. Thank you. Another question which comes to my mind, if it's okay. I'm sure you're going to cover this later, but obviously you've talked about the fact that you have students from literally all around the world. I presume, therefore, that you had to make the decision of creating like an online course whereby you'd have maybe some flipped learning videos, but all the tasks would have to be done asynchronously, unless you had maybe sort of drop-in sessions for different time zones, so that people could then meet up with you via Zoom, which I know you're a big fan of, or certainly very used to using Zoom at the moment. Is that, I'm sure you're going to cover this later, but just, is that what you have decided to do because of the fact that the time zone differences?
Yeah, it's a multi-pronged attack, absolutely. And it's just a balance between me not being committed every second that I'm awake, and still making myself available as much as possible in lots of different ways. But yeah, I always knew that Zoom was going to wear out pretty quickly with the students. You know, that doing everything synchronously was just a non-starter. I have to say, and I wrote this in the article that's in the EdTech podcast, but you know, some of my colleagues did just go with synchronous Zoom for everything, just try to replicate the classroom. And I spoke to some of my students who were doing up to, you know, around 20 hours of Zoom meetings a week, you know, and then when they weren't in Zoom meetings, they were sat in front of a computer, you know, writing. So I really tried to find a way where I you know, wasn't going to be part of this load. So, you know, this is the big thing. And you know, if I just say, so there were some of these links that I've just put up. Once I'd written my Medium article, I really started to look around, and there were some really brilliant voices. I thoroughly recommend that you follow these links. The Please Do a Bad Job of Putting Your Courses Online post that was written was really good, because it just reminded me that this isn't online learning. This isn't you know, the same as what you were doing when you were making MOOCs. This was emergency remote teaching, you know, and that is a very, very different thing. And so, you know, my priorities here were really, really very different, you know. So they were about continuity. They were about just keeping these students going and trying to keep the morale going as well. So yeah, absolutely. From what you said, Joe, you know, it was about establishing these synchronous and asynchronous rhythms. We were using Canvas, so it had a kind of LMS as the backbone of what we were doing. And I would start the week with an announcement, so let them know what was happening throughout the week. And then normally my standard hours were Tuesday mornings and Thursday mornings as well. And in for one of those classes, I had other bits and pieces throughout the week that I also kind of jumped around between. But I said, I'll be around on those Tuesday mornings, but I'll set you 2 learning steps. So 2 asynchronous steps to be completed throughout the week. And then we'll have synchronous meetings on Thursday mornings, which are a check-in. But I'll make sure that these are workshops like we were going to do before, where the students are the busy people, and it really isn't just me talking. And this is really important, and this was really challenging. You know, trying to do active learning through Zoom is a real challenge of creativity. You know, I was really lucky for all the people who kind of supported me and gave me ideas. And there was a lot of good sharing of things there. So yeah, this is me and my happy students. You know, just talking to them about what, you know, with their situation, and just having that check-in, and, you know, where are you, and what's going on. You know, that was a big thing at those times. You know, that was really, really important. So, you know, we did a lot of that. Sometimes it was really what ran the sessions was really just the catch up itself. I also use Slack as a back channel, mostly because Slack's quite embedded at CMU. I probably would have used Discord or something more free, but I thought it was really important to have a back channel, somewhere where we could keep kind of constant chatter, somewhere that we could stay in touch. So yeah, I would, let's say, announcement at the beginning of the week, a couple of learning steps released on a Tuesday, catch up on a Thursday, and bit by bit they kind of got into that rhythm throughout the term. And you know, I'm still doing it now, and I, you know, and here are some of the things that I found have been really useful. So like I said, having updates from students, giving them a forum where they can talk to, you know, to somebody that outside of their family or their friends, and just talk about what's going on, and be part of their class community. I think that was really important, and you know, and really useful. And I used to really love putting myself on mute and letting them, you know, like normally in a class, you're trying to get everybody back together. But it's fine, you know, if we lose the, you know, 10-15 minutes for everybody just saying, how are you doing, and what have you been up to, and what Netflix show should I binge watch now, you know, that was really, really good. So it was really lovely for them. And we really concentrated on sort of those sort of good news stories around, you know, and I've never given so much praise as this sounds awfully fatuous, doesn't it? But I've never given so much praise as I have with the work that students have done lately, you know, because I know what a huge achievement it all is. And one of the things that I did breaking down the task was to make them much smaller, much more manageable. And, you know, like making little digital stories, little GIFs, making little slideshows, very tiny things, probably not more than sort of 5 to 10 second things, little experiments in animation, little augmented reality experiments, just so that they could really pepper Slack, or the chat, with these little films, and then they could all get in there and go, that was awesome, that was really, and talk about them, or have you tried this, and that was really good, sort of generating those things. So yeah,
just on that point, can I just interrupt if that's okay? Just on that very point, I was leading a webinar the other day for a school, and I asked everyone to do sort of silly hand signals, and I used a Chrome extension called Capture to a GIF, which I can find for everyone, and it just basically turned you draw a frame over the videos, and it captures those few frames as a GIF, and then I could then post the GIF within the chat, and that was just a lot of fun, because it meant that that you could ask them to do some sort of action in relation to language learning, and then everyone does their GIF, but then you capture everyone's screen all together. It was just quite a nice thing to do, I thought. It was with teachers, but you could do that with students as well, of course.
Yeah, I think GIFs are really, really kind of, they're really rewarding, just in terms of the students feel really, really pleased when they kind of made them, and they work really well, and they got cleverer and cleverer, and there's been a real kind of, the GIF wars on Slack have been quite intense, I have to say. Yeah, here are a few more. Dressing up is fun, I mean, so at the beginning, when I did the Slack announcements, I would say sometimes it's hats, sometimes it's moustaches, a lot of homemade moustaches. I think for our final, when we ran the final week, we had we had a digital festival. So I thought I'd better dress up for it. And this isn't quite a box of Yorkshire tea. It's my bow tie, and So yeah, whatever you have around you, just make it and stuff. And it was really good because it was a storytelling course as well. This one that we've done. To be able to talk, like today we had mascots. This is a Ted Wing, so he's a teddy bear's head on a penguin's body. I don't think we should go into. Please, no more questions in the chat.
That must be a Pittsburgh thing.
Yeah. I do know the Penguins are a very good ice hockey team. Yeah, definitely. Everything's Penguins was here. But so yeah, I think my son Dylan made this at the library as part of a kind of a thing, and we all tell stories about our mascots. Mascot isn't an American word, I found out as well. Mascot is the thing that you get. The person in the suit at in a costume at the football match or the baseball game, and these. But they don't. My students don't understand half the English words that I say. Anyway, I've had to tell a fortnight. Nobody knew what a fortnight was. Yeah, I had to explain.
Oh right, okay.
So deadline. Yeah, they think it's just the video game. So when I said the deadline's in a fortnight, I got some very quizzical looks. There you go. Just breaking it up. I think in terms of active learning, that changing pace. It's one of the things that you learn as a teacher early on. Just keep changing the pace of things, keep changing direction, keep moving, and all the games and quizzes, Kahoot and things like that. They're really useful at doing that. They're like they're the punctuation, they're the pauses, they're the right. Okay, that was brilliant discussion. We're going to try this now, and it's really great to just mix all of that kind of stuff up. Best bit of a Zoom meeting is when family or pets turn up, and that was always to be encouraged. I was hoping he was supposed to be on cue now and turn up next to me, and he's gone off to do something. So I was gonna, that joke fell on its face, but yeah, that's been a major thing. Like I say, Slack has been really brilliant in lots of ways, but I've had to work at it. I've had to keep getting in there, and just with prompts, and that's been definitely an interesting element. And then the other thing I would say is there's a quiet with asynchronous learning. So you write, this sort of fantastic kind of post or this worksheet, and you press go and you send it out there. And you don't know whether it's been received, you don't know what's happening, but you've got to be patient, and it's really hard. I had to keep resisting the temptation to go in and prod them, have you seen it and stuff, and yeah, that. So there's a strange quietness, but they've they've always been great, and things have started to appear throughout the week. They've started to answer some of the discussion prompts. They've started to make things, and they appear like little dots, and that really works well. So that's good, and it's that consciousness of, like I say, of being in a bubble, and you've got to feel like you're in a bubble with those students, and that you're sharing the experience together, and there's an identity there. I didn't know whether to do this or not, and I know there's 33 participants here. You're all sworn to secrecy, but telling little white lies is quite useful, and you can do that in asynchronous or remote things. I've blown it now, aren't I? The word's going to get out. But sometimes I would say, "Oh, thank you for all the emails I've been getting about this particular task," or "Thank you for the. I can see a lot of you have been emailing me to ask, can I do more stuff on audio? Yeah, okay, no problem. We'll do some audio this week, and." I might have bent the truth just a little bit in some of those things, really fantastic outcomes. I love everyone sending me your films, and you could see a few people going, "Oh shit, I haven't sent in my film yet." So yeah. I mean, we do this as teachers all the time, don't we? We go, "All right, I'm going to give you 10 minutes to do this task," and at about 7 minutes, you go, "Okay, pens down." So a little bit of that happens online as well. So,
And did it work?
I don't know how far to push that. Yeah, it did.
It did.
That's the thing, really. And it's, you haven't got much in terms of some of those tools as a teacher outside of that classroom. So as long as they're little white lies and not, and as long as I suppose that they're being done for, for the benefit of everybody. Yeah. I think I'll stop talking about it.
I mean,
now.
just on a little bit of feedback about when I've been doing webinars recently, the thing that I've really missed compared to doing face-to-face training sessions is that you can't do the whole, walking around the room, checking over people's shoulders, seeing where they're at immediately by what they're doing on the screen or how they're reacting, what have you. Have you found something similar? Have you found it frustrating the way that it's difficult to really know whether, I suppose maybe if they're like doing a lot of writing, it's easier to see in the context of what they're actually writing, of how they're doing. But do you find when you ask them to make content that it's quite frustrating? You can't necessarily see the process as easily. You're just seeing the final outcome in a remote teaching context.
Yeah, and process is everything for me, because I really want to see, just like a maths teacher, I really want to see the workings out, and because that's pretty much what I'm assessing. So I want to see the storyboards and the ideas before you made your final film. Not just the final film. Sometimes I can read enough into final outputs to kind of trace back how they did it. But yeah, I do need to see that. So, I mean, for me, providing some workspaces that are open, just using Google Docs in that way. So giving everybody a slide where they do their workings out, or add their notes, or having collaborative documents where they can have their little bit of it. That's been very useful. So yes, I am trying to find those sorts of spaces where students can be doing their working out online. And I also agree. So I don't go into breakout rooms, for instance, because I think it's pretty awful. Like as they're getting into a chat, suddenly you appear sort of on the right hand side of the screen, and I sort of think. Whereas normally, yeah, you're absolutely right. I would have walked around a desk and I would have leaned, just peered over, see what somebody was saying, and I'd said something like, have you thought of this, or that's a lovely idea, or that's harder to do, definitely in Zoom. But I have been able to do some of that where we've worked in collaborative spaces, like shared documents, like Google Slides and Google Docs. So, yeah,
that's great. Thanks so much.
Okay.
We had a question in the chat about George Lloyd, isn't it? Is that right? Hang on. Yeah, George Floyd, which I'm sure you're going to come on to about.
Oh yeah.
So I'll stop interrupting and just let you talk, Stephan, if that's okay.
Okay. Yeah, no, that's the next bit really. Oh, I've got the beach ball of death. Hang on, I've just got to make sure that that's all going to happen. Come on, do your thing. Oh, okay, hang on. I might have to quit out of my presentation and just start it up again. but yeah. Oh, here we go. Here we go. Oh yeah. One thing that I just wanted to mention as well, and that I've drawn great inspiration from, is that all the sort of supplemental learning, or the informal learning, and sort of home learning that's been around on the web for the last few months, where museums and have created things, art clubs and artists have shared their process with us. It's been really fantastic. And something that I'm becoming more and more interested in. I think people have really found refuge in learning in a way that they haven't before. So that's the thing. So yes, everything changed again, and this has been the sort of second part really. And oh, is my presentation behaving? That's what I really want to know. Yeah, and absolutely. I think it's. I mean, it obviously didn't start with the killings of George Floyd and Breonna Taylor and Ahmaud Arbery, but these have been the sort of the catalysts for the Black Lives Matter protests, and it's been really it's been an emotional time to be here in America. And seeing all this, and it's right sort of at our doorstep really. And there've been marches, on the streets up the road, in every neighbourhood, past the university. Everybody's been involved. There's been a real kind of change really in terms of, and it was really fascinating. The first protest that there did end in violence, and a police car was set on fire. And since then, and that was just a particular faction, and the police came in and they clamped down, and the police reaction really just, I mean, it's crazy. So you're protesting about police brutality, and then the police come in and they beat up the protesters, and you kind of think, well, hang on, they're absolutely vindicated for the things that they're protesting against. I mean, it just seemed to beyond the pale, and it's still carrying on. It's happening in Portland at the moment. It's happening, all over the country. And there are marches planned for Saturday and for next week. And it really has brought people out on the streets. And I think my first inclination was, we're in the middle of a pandemic, but I really wanted everybody to stay safe. And I really wanted everybody to, just make sure that they're protected. And I think on the whole that they have. We've had a jump in numbers over the past few weeks, but none of those have been connected to the protests. They've all actually been connected with people traveling out of state or going to bars. And as you after a few drinks, your inhibitions are lowered down, and so and your masks come off. And this has been one of the issues, and numbers have been climbing again. But luckily, my numbers aren't climbing in Pittsburgh or in Allegheny County, where we are, at anything the rate as they are in Florida and in Texas. I mean, it's just absolutely shocking. But the systemic racism in America is like the pandemic, and it's really not difficult to draw parallels between the two. And these people lost their lives, and Black people are losing their lives at a rate that's much higher per population than anybody else. And what it is to grow up in America, as a Black person, I think it must be very, very difficult indeed, and to know that the police aren't there to help you, but that they're more likely going to, that you're more likely going to get beaten up or thrown into prison than helped, and that you're really not seen as, as the police aren't seen as somebody who protects you. It really just isn't the case. So, and you really don't have to look far for evidence of this, and the cops who killed Breonna Taylor, if you don't know, she was a medical person. I think she was a medical emergency person, like an ambulance person, and she was asleep in her bed when the police knocked on, burst through the door. In fact, they shot from outside of the house, and they killed her. And she lay bleeding for 20 minutes before she was taken off an ambulance and died on the way. and still, you know, the police that did that, they're on administrative leave. You know, they're not. You know, no one's been arrested. No one's been, you know, locked up. I mean, and it took a week after George Floyd died, and that after everybody saw the footage of him saying that, you know, I can't breathe, and calling for his mum. You know, it took a week for the police officers to be arrested. You know, and stopped. I mean, it's, you know, absolutely, yeah. I mean, this is the thing, isn't it? And from my, you know, white cisgendered point of view, it's a shock, but it's no shock for the people who live this reality every day, for Black people and for people of color. You know, this is their lives. So, you know, it's and what I mean by, you know, it being here on, you know, it's really come to understand that, you know, we're part of this system, and we're part of the system within the university. That systemic racism is, you know, is the foundation upon which we work. And you only have to go to the website. There's a Twitter feed called Black in the Ivory, and if you read that, you'll get a better understanding maybe of some of the experiences that people go through, that my Black colleagues and colleagues of color go through. Everything from, you know, being mistaken for the janitor, or being overlooked for tenure. You know, I mean, it's all in there. Being interrupted by students because nobody thought that you were the professor. I mean, you know, it's all happening. It's happening on a daily basis. And then, you know, at Carnegie Mellon University, you know, we had a kind of response, and then in that same week, the university hired a chap called Richard Grinnell, who was the one of the Trump administration's intelligence officers, who was a person who was the ambassador for Germany, who's linked with far right groups in Germany. So, you know, a week after putting through a statement to say that you stand in solidarity with the Black Lives Matter movement, you hire a white supremacist. So, you know, we really have been sort of, you know, seeing this, and you know, there really has been a, you know, as one of my colleagues wrote this article, a chap called Richard Purcell and his friend, you know, his other colleague Jason England, and they wrote about this, you know, essentially the toothless response. You know, it really did. I mean, everybody could feel it. The response felt like a form letter, unfortunately, and not something from the heart. I mean, there's been some more moves in the right direction, but we've got a long way to go, certainly. And I've got to think about this in terms of my teaching, and I say over the past few weeks or the months, and I've been reading and trying to educate myself and listen as much as possible. God, an absolute chasm has opened up of the things that I do not know about, and I really did not know about the legacy of the Confederate past, you know, or I didn't know about you know, Black historians. I didn't know about people like you know, James Baldwin, and you know, his talk to teachers, and you know, really is because, you know, we do not learn Black history in schools. We do not know, in England we don't learn about, you know, our colonial past in the way that we should do. You know, that we've learned more about those statues being torn down than we ever have done. You know, and that's exactly the same thing in America. You know, those statues were put up in the Jim Crow era. You know, after the abolition of slavery, but while segregation's, you know, carried on for many more years. You know. And it's only now that I'm really starting to find out about, you know, the work to, you know, to make things better, really. So these are the things, you know, these are not what I'm saying to people. This is what you should go out and do. You know, these are the notes to myself, really, about the things that I am thinking about at the moment. You know, like I say, I need to educate myself. I need to get to know my students better. I need to get to know their backgrounds and histories, and I do need to, you know, like I say, amplify the voices and work of Black people and people of colour, you know, my colleagues. So, you know, this is really important. I need to also recognise the intersectionality, you know, of Blackness in terms of, you know, the LGBTQ community. That's really important as well. And I've got to do the work. So, yeah, it's not enough to say that you're not racist, but you must be anti-racist. You know, you must be actively anti-racist. So, yeah, those are the things that I've sort of set myself recently. We have a department diversity statement, but I've taken it upon myself to write my own, because I think I need to be able to have the confidence to do that from a place of learning, really. So yeah, so this is where we are at the moment. This is an illustration of there's a House Representative John Lewis, who died last week, and really just finding out about him and the work that he did. You know, and he was a huge you know, figure in the civil rights movement. Again, I really do not know about these people. I'm learning American history, but really I'm learning the history of the world, and learning about my own history. So, you know, I'm learning about the history of whiteness, and I should, you know, have to say that, really. So these are things that I've been doing, and you know, I'm trying to reaffirm my personal philosophy around education as well, and think about some of these areas. I'm a good social constructivist, you know, in the making things and the things that I want to do. And I also know that this is about, you know, experiential learning. So I am going back to those, you know, practitioners. I mean, I got my books out, you know, trying to read through people like John Dewey, Paulo Freire, who are, you know, always going to go back to. I got this the other day, which is, I heartily recommend. It's a really fascinating book that also draws on people like bell hooks and other people, so some really fantastic educators and philosophers and speakers to talk about a more enlightened and a more active and a more socially conscious teaching. To also not especially in language learning, not just to teach about culture, but to teach in an intercultural way. This has been really interesting, and how much of that leans on theories around active learning, and for instance things like reflective practice. That's been really interesting for me. So I just want to skip through really just to talk about the future, just finally. I know that we're getting towards the hour. I've been collecting photos on what a socially distanced classroom might look like. I've got a load of them on a Google Doc. I'll try and share it with you, Joe, because I think it's really fascinating to see the different solutions that people are coming up with. And at the moment, I've got to ask my students. So my students are keen to come back to university. They're keen to restart their learning. I think, I mean, I'll flatter myself that they're coming back for people like me. They want to. I think living with mum and dad for the last 4 months has pretty much driven them kind of bonkers. So they want to come, and they want to have their independence again. But the reality will be that, you know, we will have this socially distanced classroom, and I really, you know, from a pedagogical sense, I really don't know what I can do in a socially distanced classroom that I can't do remotely. There's lots of things I could do in a non-socially distanced classroom, in the classroom that we had before lockdown. But really, what can I do here that I can't do remotely? I could probably do more remotely, to be honest with you. And it looks like, you know, we're going to offer this sort of high flex version, which is to say that some people may choose to access the learning remotely, online. Some people might want to have it face to face, and I will have both. Maybe I'll be standing at the front of the screen. I'll have other, you know, my remote students on Zoom on a monitor nearby, and I'll have other students socially distanced in front of me. And I'm really trying to work out what that's going to be like. So yeah, so you know, that's me really thinking about those kind of next steps. You know, one tip for you, you know, when your Twitter feed gets too much, you can mute certain words and phrases. So those are the phrases that I've managed to get rid of at the moment, to try and make my Twitter feed a little bit more sane, a little bit better. So I did do write a blog post about this for the EdTech podcast, and you're very welcome to go and see it. And I'm also looking forward to writing for my colleagues in Southampton, Melissa Prutano and her cohort. And there's a publication that she's looking at as well in terms of language learning and teaching within the pandemic. So yeah, I mean, you know, life goes on. We're also wondering. We've got two boys. We've got a 9-year-old and a 13-year-old, and we're talking about whether they have the option of going back to school in the end of August, or joining what they call a sort of cyber academy. You know, doing everything remotely online. And of course, you know, my 13-year-old wants to catch up with his friends. You know, living with this mum and dad as well has been hard work for him. But we just don't know, and we just got to keep our eyes on the science. You know, trust in Fauci. You know, he's getting us through this. Anthony Fauci, who's the sane voice in the administration. You know, who's guided lots and lots of presidents through different health emergencies. So, you know, there are good people here who are looking out for us, yeah, you know, we'll see you on the other side.
Well, thank you so much, Stephan, for this very sort of personal testimony. I think it's been really moving to hear you talk about the different challenges that you've had and how you've dealt with them, and how you've put well-being essentially very much at the fore with your students. I think that's been really lovely. In the chat, some people were asking whether you could give us like a reading list of recommended books. So you recommended some of the ones during your presentation, but it would be really lovely if it's possible. I don't know if you've got a reading list you could put together or what have you, but that would be a great thing to add to the AWL London webpage, because Helen very dutifully creates web pages after all the webinars that we do. So it'd be lovely to add something like that to that. I was wondering as well if you're carrying on doing the newsletter that I know I subscribe to, or maybe could you maybe talk a little bit about that, about the idea behind the newsletter and how often it comes out and what have you?
Yeah, I do. I mean, I do a sporadic newsletter, aren't they all? But it's a newsletter connected to the Global Languages and Cultures Room. Initially, I did it it was just going to be an in-house publication to encourage people in terms of exploring new technologies in language learning. But bit by bit, more and more people have started to sign up for that, and what's been useful in-house has been hugely useful outside of that as well. And people have been sending me things, and I you know, have been listening to things, you know, like Joe's MFL Tutorati podcast. You know, absolutely brilliant source of really fantastic things. I think at this time, you know, it's a real mix. People need tools, people need strategies to kind of help them, but they also need that opportunity for reflection, I think, and that space to kind of think. It's been interesting that because I've been doing so much online, my offline has become a little bit more interesting. I definitely read physical books more. I draw and paint and things like that, and I'm trying to find non-screen things to do, you know, which I think is kind of healthy anyway. So yeah,
definitely. Thank you so much. It's been really interesting indeed. It's been wonderful. Helen, a few final thoughts perhaps?
Yes, just to say, I mean, I was really looking forward to this, and when I read about you and about what the session was going to be about, because I think certainly we feel as a series of webinars, we've been very focused on the practical, on let's have tips as to how to do things. And I just think this has been brilliantly timed, because you've really brought us to thinking about what are we all here for and what's the most important thing. And, you know, some of the comments, people are really just saying, yeah, we do that, and we've discovered that. And I was talking to you right at the beginning about how I liked a lot of certainly I would say to everybody, follow Stephan, because you in turn also follow good people, and you retweet things. I suppose it's always when you see something where you think, yeah, that really does chime with the real experience of what it's really like. And certainly there were so many things that you're talking about. And then the second half that you're talking about, everybody listening. It's just been really a real privilege to listen to you. It's really, very, very,
thank you. Thank you.
Really good.